Hello, my name is Elizabeth Ike, doing a cultural case study on Asian Americans. In 2020, the U.S. population was over 331 million people. The population identifying as one race was 89.8%, and then the population of two or more races was 10.2%. This case study will focus on the U.S. population identified as Asian alone. Asians are the fastest growing of all major racial and ethnic groups in the United States. They represented 6% of the U.S. population in 2020. That was a 35.5% increase from 2010. And in South Dakota, 2020, they represented 1.5% of the population and 2.3% of the population in Minnehaha County. There are 6 origin groups that make up 85% of the U.S. Asian population as of 2019. There are Chinese, Asian Indian, Filipino, Vietnamese, Korean, and Japanese. The U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War and Secret War in Laos placed the lives of their Southeast Asian allies at risk. So in 1975, Southeast Asians from Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam fled to the United States as refugees. Approximately 2.4% of Asian Americans were born in the United States. 27.1% of the foreign-born population are Asians, and approximately 85% of the foreign-born Asian population were born in Asia, mainly East Asia, Southeast Asia, South Central Asia, and West Asia. In 1763, Filipino fishermen established the first Asian American settlement in Louisiana. And between 1849 and 1851, we see the first major wave of Asians, mostly Chinese, arrive in the United States. This was fueled by the gold rush in California. In 1875, we start to see Asian discrimination through the Page Act of 1875, which prohibited the recruitment of laborers from Asia and blocked Chinese women from entering the country. And in 1941, President Roosevelt signed an executive order which forced over 120,000 Japanese Americans into internment camps on the West Coast. And this was fueled by the Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor. And in 1957, we see a turn in the favor of Asian Americans. Dalip Sal, the first Asian American Indian to serve in Congress representing California. And in 1959, Hiram Fong, first Asian Chinese American, became the U.S. Senator representing Hawaii. And then in 1965, Patsy Mink, U.S. Representative from Hawaii, became the first Asian American female to serve in Congress. So Asian Americans are dispersed all over the United States, with the largest population in Hawaii, California, New Jersey, New York, Washington, and Nevada. They're primarily concentrated in urban areas. When you look at Chicago and the Atlanta metro areas, we see the largest group of Asian Indians. In the Houston metro area, largest group of Vietnamese. In the Minneapolis metro area, you have the Hmong. And then the largest Asian group in Seattle and Boston metro areas was Chinese, and the Filipinos was the largest of the Asian population in San Diego metro area. So in South Dakota, Asian alone population are in 61 of the 64 counties, with the largest percentage, 10.8% residing in Beadle County, and then 2.3% in Minnehaha County and 1.5% in Lincoln County. So this is a geographic dispersion map of the Asian groups, largest Asian groups. So you can see here the Koreans are heavily in Alabama, and you don't really see a huge population in the other states, unlike the Chinese, Filipinos, and Vietnamese. And then you have the Hmong primarily concentrated here in Minnesota and Wisconsin. So in 2019, 73% of Asian Americans spoke another language other than English, and 30.9% of the Asian American population are not fluent in English. If you look further into this population, you see a high percentage of Vietnamese and Chinese who do not speak fluent English. So the children ages 5 to 17 were more fluent than the older populations. And Asian communication patterns stem from a variety of cultural structures. They prefer to use nonverbal cues to convey meaning, and their communication style is more formal and indirect, implicit, and polite. According to the U.S. Census data, 2021, approximately 56% of Asian American population attain a bachelor's degree or higher compared to whites and blacks. The males, 89% are high school graduate or higher, 58% have a bachelor's degree or higher. And when we look at the female population, 86% with high school graduate or higher, and then 54% have a bachelor's degree or higher. 24.7% of Asians had a graduate or professional degree in 2019, and this was the highest than any other single race groups. So just to give comparison of how Asian compares to the other groups, we see here in bachelor's degree, they are leading the charge for that, highest than all the other groups combined. So in 2020 U.S. Census, Asian Americans earn more money than other racial and genders. The median household income was over $91,000 compared to whites. The median earnings for males was over $71,000 and over $56,000 for females. 10.6% of the Asian American population live below the poverty line. This is the same amount as the whites. But in the Asian population, the subgroup most affected were the Hmong and the Filipinos. Unemployment rate in 2020 census, according to 2020 census, was 4.3%. The 2021 Bureau of Labor and Statistics shows that the average household size for Asian American was 2.8. The earners per household, average earners per household was 1.5. 64% of Asian Americans are homeowners, 36% are renters. The average annual expenditure on food at home was over $6,000, higher than the other races. They outspend all other racial groups in the category of food, education, and housing. And in 2021 occupational categories, Asians made up 58% of the 58% of Asians worked in management, professional, and related occupations, compared to 43% of whites and 34% of blacks. And in insurance coverage, 73% of the Asian population under 65 and 25.5% of the population over age 65 were privately insured. 17.3% under the age of 65 were insured under Medicaid, and then 18.6% over 65 were insured by Medicare. And then the uninsured rate for those under 65 was 7.1%, compared to the over 65 group, which was 2.2%. The percentage of adults age 18 to 64 without health insurance coverage was 6.06%. So this is a comparison chart of Asians against the other racial groups. So if we look in 2010, we see that the whites were leading the charge when it comes to insurance coverage. And then fast forward to 2018, we see that Asians are leading the charge of having insurance coverage. So the life expectancy for Asian Americans at birth is 80.7 years. According to CDC data, 2021, the leading cause of death for Asian Americans was cancer, heart disease, and COVID. That's across the board for a lot of the other groups as well. However, the 2020 infant mortality rate for Asian was 3.14 deaths per 1,000 live births, which is significantly lower than the national average of 5.42 and other single race groups. In 2018, the leading cause of infant mortality was low birth weight, and in 2020, that leading cause became congenital malformations. So psychological health for Asian Americans, they had the highest rates of post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. 70% of Southeast Asians in the United States were diagnosed with PTSD. Um, and then, like African Americans, a contributing factor of mental health disorder among Asians is perceived discrimination. Suicide was the leading cause of death for Asians ages 15 to 24 in 2019. And then only 7% of Asians 18 and over received mental health services in 2019 compared to whites. So you can see that disparity. And then there's a higher rate of liver and IBD cancer and stomach cancer in Asian Americans than in whites. In 2018, ages 18 and over, 4.4% of Asians were diagnosed with coronary artery disease. Diabetes was more prevalent amongst the Asian Indians and Filipinos, and asthma was more prevalent amongst Filipinos and Japanese. So the traditional and native diet. Traditional Asian diet is high in vegetables, fruit, and legumes, low in fat and meat, and high in fiber. Southwest Asia traditional diet includes naan, which is flatbread, curry, beans, strong spices, and rice. And then in the Northeast, we have more usage of fats, oils, and sauces. There's frying, grilling, and sauteing, and then raw foods like sushi and sashimi. And then in Southeast Asia, we have more lightly prepared food, more aromatic. It is stir fry, steam, or boiled. They use citrus juices and herbs in their cooking. And then the current Asian American diet in the United States are characterized by high sodium content, high carbs, and heavy use of cooking oils and lack of fiber. So we see a shift from their traditionally healthy diet. Regarding religion, spirituality, and beliefs, 34% of Asians are Christians, mainly Catholics and evangelical Protestant. And then 16% are Hindus, but they make up 91% of the Hindu population. 6% are Buddhist and 6% are Muslim. And then 44% of Asians believe in God with absolute certainty, which is lower than Blacks and whites. Health beliefs, healing practices, and cultural practices. So Asian believe that health is maintained through harmony with the world, a balance between yin and yang. And the body is viewed as a gift, therefore they may refuse surgical procedures. And then traditional healing practices involves herbs, dietary therapy, massage, and acupuncture. The practices of cupping, coining, and moxibustion can cause bruises and lesions that are sometimes mistaken for physical abuse. So those of us who will be dealing with Asian patients of Asian descent, do not jump to conclusion. Just investigate further before determining abuse. So here's a picture of what cupping looks like. Looks painful. And then down here we have the moxibustion. That's a picture of it. Cultural fun facts. The term Asian American was first used in 1968 by University of Berkeley, California students Emma G. and Yuji Ishioka. Their inspiration was the Black Power movement and the Vietnam War protest. Family unit and respect for elders is important in the Asian culture. In 1978, Congress passed a resolution creating Asian Pacific American Heritage Week, which was later expanded to a month in 1992. And so this is celebrated in the whole month of May. Thank you for watching.